Hello friends, exactly 1 year ago on August 30th, 2023 in London at the age of 94, the Egyptian businessman Mohamed Al-Fayed passed away. He is most often remembered as the father of Dodi Al-Fayed, Princess Diana's companion with whom she died in a car accident in 1997. But Mohamed was also a significant figure for the English Premier League. Even before Abramovich and the Glazers, he sensed the commercial power of English football. He was the first foreigner to buy a local club and elevate it to a new level. That club was Fulham. This investment was not the biggest in Al-Fayed's life. His life was truly an adventurous novel, filled with Arab sheikhs, Eastern sultans, a Latin dictator, CIA agents, British dukes and princesses. In general, Mohamed deserves to be remembered. Make yourselves comfortable. Today we will dive into the fascinating biography of possibly the greatest adventurer to ever enter English football. Subscribe, like this video and leave comments. Let's get started. Friends, there's a great giveaway happening on my Telegram channel right now. Together with the author of the Futurism channel, we've prepared 3 fabulous prizes for you. Take a look at these. So the first one, the home kit of the club Atenoclitia. This club has become known in the last 2 seasons for its stunning jersey designs. That's why we decided to give it away. A long sleeve jersey straight from the official fan shop. The second prize is a professional Nike Club Elite Team Soccer ball with FIFA Quality Pro certification. And the final one is the third kit of Venice. There's nothing to explain here, you just need to go and participate. Also, by the way, it's long sleeved and also from the official store. I'll leave a link to the contest in the description. Go and win these amazing football artifacts. And now let's begin. One of the episodes of the series The Crown about the life of the British royal family begins with a scene in Egyptian Alexandria. In 1946, a 17-year-old street vendor of Coca-Cola named Mohammed watches the arrival of the Duke of Windsor, the former British King Edward VIII, who abdicated the throne due to his marriage to the divorced American Wallis Simpson. At home, he tells his father, a humble public school inspector, about the meeting. And his father says he despises the English, who occupied Egypt back in 1882. But even more, I despise those Egyptians who look at the British as the masters of the world, says the father. Mohammed disagrees. Left alone with his brother, he confesses, I want to be like them, to have the same power. We look at their kings and queens as gods because they are gods. Of course, this scene is the product of the screenwriter's imagination, but in it, he formulated the main goal that Mohammed aspired to from his youth, not just to become rich. Money was merely a means for him to achieve his main dream, to become equal to the upper circles of British aristocracy. He dedicated his entire long life to achieving this goal and came very close, but he could not overcome the class and national differences and fully integrate into the society of titled individuals. And this was his true tragedy. On May 29, 1997, a significant event occurred in English football, the importance of which was hardly appreciated at the time. The owners of Fulham, which had just been promoted to League One, the 3rd English division, announced the sale of the club to Egyptian billionaire Mohamed Al-Fayed for £6 million. He, of course, promised the fans a bright future in the near term, investing £30 million in the club and its infrastructure. This is a great day, Al-Fayed declared in his first address. I have been a big fan of Fulham for a long time and now I want to help it return to the Premier League. We have Chelsea just around the corner and we can become as big as them, or maybe even bigger. I know it sounds unrealistic, but you have to dream, and when you dream, sometimes impossible things become reality. I'm here to enjoy watching football and to take this club to the top. The news of Fulham's purchase wasn't shocking, as it was still about the 3rd division, but it didn't go completely unnoticed. After all, the oldest club in London, with a history dating back to 1879, had changed owners. Yes, it never claimed top status. Before Al-Fayed's purchase, it had only briefly jumped into the 1st division twice. The best achievement was 10th place in the 59-60 season, but Fulham always had a special aura. The old Craven Cottage Stadium on the banks of the Thames was built back in 1896, and its stands attracted an interesting crowd. The Fulham area is one of the most prestigious in London. Until the 19th century, it was home to royal hunting grounds. The stadium's name is connected to this. On the site of the arena stood a cottage, a small hunting lodge of Baron Craven. This house burned down 8 years before the stadium was built, and there was no point in rebuilding it. Fulham became part of the sprawling capital. The area was favored by the creative intelligentsia, actors, musicians, TV hosts. In Russia, such places are called old dacha areas. That's why there were always disproportionately many celebrities among Fulham's fans. Hugh Laurie, Daniel Radcliffe, Hugh Grant, Joaquin Phoenix, Margot Robbie, Lily Allen. But despite all the star fans, before Al-Fayed's purchase, Fulham was going through nightmare times and was several times on the brink of liquidation. The cause of all the troubles was the stadium's location. Even in the late 80s, the plot under Craven Cottage was valued at £150 million, and greedy developers planned to kick the football stadium out and build elite housing with a shopping centre there. Initially, there were plans to merge Fulham with another club from West London, Queen's Park Rangers. They even came up with a name, Fulham Park Rangers, with a registration at Loftus Road. That's the QPR stadium. Fulham and Queen's Park Rangers fans, who were previously considered enemies, united against the common threat. They disrupted Queen's Park Rangers matches in the First Division by storming the field en masse. The campaign was supported by Jimmy Hill, a former Fulham player who at the time was the host of the main football show on BBC, Match of the Day. Hill had enormous authority. It was he who in the 80s proposed awarding 3 points for a win, counting goal difference in case of a tie, and was the first to invite former players as experts on TV. Under pressure, the merger was cancelled, but the threat of Fulham's disappearance did not go away. The club, which had already dropped to the 4th division, was accumulating debts. Creditors offered a solution to pay off with the stadium and hold home matches at Stamford Bridge. And again, the club was saved by fans who announced a fundraising campaign. They were unlikely to fully cover the debt, but the funds raised postponed the catastrophe to a later date. Everyone understood that this couldn't go on for long. And then suddenly a savior appeared, Mohamed Al-Fayed. The figure of the buyer deserved special attention. To be completely accurate, Al-Fayed was not the first foreign owner of an English club. The pioneer was the American lawyer Bruce Osterman back in 1984. He bought the 4th Division club Tranmere Rovers from a suburb of Liverpool. But it was more of a comical story in the spirit of Ted Lasso, only without a happy ending. The American had no idea what to do next. He entrusted the team to his fitness instructor Ken Bracewell, an Englishman with experience playing for amateur clubs. And when that didn't work out, he made striker Frank Worthington a player coach who charmed the American by being a huge Elvis Presley fan and arriving at the club's base in a costume like the king of rock and roll. It's no surprise that Tranmere went bankrupt after 3 years. Al-Fayed was a figure of a completely different scale. By the time he bought Fulham, he was well known in England. The Egyptian owned the famous London department store Harrods, which he bought in 1985 for £615 million. And a month later, in the summer of '97, the world learned the Al-Fayed name due to Mohammed's son Dodi Al-Fayed's romance with Princess Diana. This love ended in tragedy in a Paris tunnel. The death of his son and the reaction of the royal family made the Egyptian businessman reassess his life values. He declared war on the Windsors, the people he idolized. Mohammed had always strived to become one of them, but he remained just a wealthy Egyptian merchant with a dubious reputation to the aristocrats. The dubious dealings of Al-Fayed became known thanks to declassified CIA archives. It had been monitoring the businessman since the early 60s, suspecting him of ties with the Soviet Union. These American suspicions were not confirmed. Al-Fayed was simply an eccentric adventurer without any political convictions. Al-Fayed first came to the attention of intelligence agencies after he appeared in Haiti in 1964, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and quickly became close to the local dictator François Duvalier. He was a completely ruthless type even by the standards of Latin American dictators. Coming to power in the late 50s, he established a strict authoritarian regime whose ideology bizarrely combined anti-communism, black nationalism, the ideology of Nazi Germany, and the traditional voodoo cult. To fight dissenters, Duvalier created the Tonton Macoute squads, an armed militia that kidnapped, tortured, and killed anyone who seemed to oppose Papadoc's regime. That's what the dictator called himself. During the dictator's rule, the Tonton Macoutes, whom locals considered invulnerable zombies, killed between 30 and 60,000 people. And another 300,000 Haitians fled abroad from poverty and violence. The US, for a time, supported Duvalier's regime with money and weapons, turning a blind eye to the atrocities and corruption. The main thing was that Duvalier was an anti-communist and could be a bulwark against the pro-Soviet Castro regime in neighboring Cuba. But the dictator's madness at some point reached such proportions that even the cynical Americans withdrew their support in search of someone more reasonable. Duvalier responded in his own way, taking responsibility for the assassination of US President John Kennedy. He claimed to have made a doll of the American leader and stuck it with pins. And that's what will happen to anyone who dares to go against Papa Doc, he said. A year later, Duvalier held a referendum that allowed him to become president for life. The ballot had only one option for the question of extending the leader's term. Yes, dissenters could write no by hand, but it was, to put it mildly, unsafe, considering that the elections were monitored by the same Tonton Macoutes with sharpened machetes. And amid this madness, 35-year-old Mohamed Al-Fayed appeared in Haiti. He would add the prefix Al to his surname in the early 70s to give an aristocratic impression. And Mohamed Al-Fayed was introduced in the local press as a Kuwaiti sheikh. He quickly became close to the Duvalier family and showed attention to the dictator's daughter, Marie-Denise, whom many saw as Papa Doc's successor. Duvalier immediately granted Fayed Haitian citizenship, even though it was prohibited by the constitution. And his wife did not hide that she dreamed of being related to an Arab sheikh. The mysterious sheikh was immediately taken under investigation by the CIA. It established that no one in Kuwait knew about such a person. Soon the Americans identified Fayed as an Egyptian citizen who worked for his brother-in-law, a Saudi arms dealer, Adnan Khashoggi. Officially, Khashoggi was a partner of Lockheed Martin, the largest arms manufacturer in the US. Through him, the unofficial part of the trade with secret clients was conducted. From Colombian drug cartels to Islamic terrorist groups, Al-Fayed was Khashoggi's right-hand man and was responsible for logistics through his shipping company headquartered in Genoa. Perhaps the name Khashoggi sounds familiar to you. His nephew, Jamal Khashoggi, was the dissident who was killed and dismembered in the Saudi consulate in Turkey by Saudi intelligence officers close to Prince Salman Al Saud. By the way, British human rights activists recall this case every time Saudi Arabia reaches out to the Premier League. Fayed's real goals in Haiti were not romantic at all. It was believed that the country had huge oil reserves. Duvalier even signed an agreement with the American company Valentine Petroleum for exploration and extraction. But after relations with the Americans soured, he simply cancelled the contract and handed over all rights to Haitian oil to his new friend and likely future relative, Mohamed Al-Fayed. Along with the oil, the Egyptian received control of the only international port in Haiti. Moreover, every ship owner had to, in addition to standard fees, sign a separate contract with Fayed's firm for the right to enter the port. The Haitian scheme didn't last long. No oil was found, and the sample Duvalier boasted about turned out to be molasses, a dark sugar syrup. Moreover, the dictator asked Fayed for $5 million, as it was a paltry sum for a Kuwaiti sheikh. Fayed promptly fled this madhouse, having first transferred all the port's money to his account in Canada. Al-Fayed moved to London, which he sincerely considered the best city in the world, and began the main business of his life, getting closer to the British aristocracy. The scheme in Haiti allowed him to lead a luxurious lifestyle. He quickly became acquainted with representatives of the large British construction business. Through his shipping company, Al-Fayed connected with the ruler of Dubai, Sheikh Rashid Al Maktoum, and the Sultan of Brunei, Hassan Al Bolkiah. In their countries, oil extraction was already underway, bringing in huge money, but in terms of infrastructure, they were real backwaters. The Egyptian brought large British construction companies to the Emirates and Brunei, which radically changed the face of the Middle East. Al-Fayed, of course, received commissions from these operations and increased his fortune. But success in business did not bring him closer to the elite of London society, so his next investments were of an image-building nature. In 1979, he bought the luxurious Ritz Hotel in Paris, where all of European aristocracy traditionally stayed. In 1985, he acquired Harrods, a luxurious shopping center in London, a traditional shopping place for the rich and famous. Additionally, Al-Fayed acquired the Villa Windsor in Paris, a luxurious house where the Duke of Windsor, the former King Edward VIII, lived after abdicating the throne. He also hired Sidney Johnson, the former valet of the Duke, who impressed the Egyptian with his knowledge of high British society and the royal family. Mohammed still hoped that one day he would be received at Buckingham Palace as an equal. One of the regular VIP clients at Harrods was Earl Spencer, Princess Diana's father. The Spencer family often attended Al-Fayed's events, particularly the polo tournament sponsored by Harrods. It was there in 1986 that Diana met Al-Fayed's eldest son, Dodi, a not-so-successful film producer who led an active social life and had a reputation as a playboy. Incidentally, a scandal erupted over the purchase of Harrods. Another businessman, Tiny Rowland, who owned several influential newspapers, also laid claim to the luxury department store. After losing to Al-Fayed, Rowland launched a media campaign against his competitor, suggesting that the Egyptian was not who he claimed to be. Not a respectable businessman, but a swindler who made money on shady deals with a criminal scent. Rowland also doubted the size of Al-Fayed's fortune, claiming that he was not as wealthy as he pretended to be. And the 615 million pounds that Al-Fayed paid for Harrods were not his money, but that of the Sultan of Brunei, a longtime friend of the Egyptian. The deal was never annulled as Rowland wanted, but it caused significant reputational damage to the Egyptian. He was long stuck with the nickname the fake pharaoh. Moreover, some facts about his life came to light that contradicted the official biography of the businessman. For example, that Fayed was born into a modest family, while he himself spoke of a father professor whose students were many prominent scientists and public figures. At that time, CIA archives were declassified, revealing a scam in Haiti. Al-Fayed did not remain silent. He recounted how he gave cash in envelopes to ministers Neil Hamilton and Tim Smith, members of John Major's cabinet, for raising in parliament the issue of the reasons for denying Al-Fayed British citizenship, and how he paid for the stay at his Paris hotel, the Ritz, for the Minister of Defense Procurement, Jonathan Aitken, who secretly met there with dubious Saudi arms dealers. Al-Fayed's statements caused a major scandal and led to the resignation of ministers and then to the defeat of the Conservatives in the 1997 parliamentary elections. Al-Fayed emerged victorious from all the proceedings, but his relations with the British establishment were irreparably damaged. The final blow to Al-Fayed's relationship with the royal family was the death of his son Dodi in a car crash with Princess Diana. Al-Fayed hoped that his heir's marriage to the mother of the future English king would strike a powerful blow to the Windsors. He publicly stated that the car crash was not a tragic accident, but the result of a secret operation by British MI6 organized by Prince Philip, the husband of the then reigning Queen Elizabeth II. Al-Fayed claimed that by the time of her death, Princess Diana was pregnant and the royal family could not allow a connection with a Muslim. The investigation into Dodi and Diana's death and the court hearings took more than 10 years. In 2008, the jury delivered a verdict of no involvement by the secret services and the royal family. Al-Fayed verbally acknowledged the court's decision, but financed the production of a documentary film, Unlawful Killing, about a secret conspiracy against Diana. The film was shown only once in a closed session at the Cannes Film Festival. Al-Fayed's lawyers believed that to avoid defamation charges, 87 episodes needed to be cut, which would render the film meaningless. At that time, it seemed that Al-Fayed was not at all concerned with Fulham, which he bought just 3 months before his son's death. However, the Egyptian kept his word. Investments came into the club, and its development was entrusted to British football legends Ray Wilkins and Kevin Keegan. Al-Fayed promised fans that in 5 years they would move from the 3rd division to the Premier League, but he managed it in 4. The creator of the historic success in the 2000-2001 season was coach Gene Tigana, who assembled a team that dominated the championship. Fulham scored 101 points. The club led from the first round to the end. The team had a good mix of experienced veterans like Chris Coleman, Karl-Heinz Riedle, and ambitious young players like Luis Saha and Luis Boamorte, who scored 45 goals between them in the tournament. Part of that team was Latvian midfielder Andrei Stolchers, who joined Fulham during the season from Shakhtar after a successful 6-month loan at Spartak. 2 years later, Tigana won Fulham's only trophy in the club's history, the now defunct Intertoto Cup, which opened the way to the UEFA Cup, where Fulham reached the 3rd round. Roy Hodgson's tenure was the most successful period in Fulham's history. The team achieved an unprecedented 7th place in the English Premier League in the 2009-2010 season, and in the following season sensationally reached the Europa League final, knocking out Hamburg, Juventus, Shakhtar and Basel along the way. Moreover, they defeated Juventus after a comeback. They lost 1-3 in Turin and conceded first in London, but did not give up and responded with 4 goals. That Hodgson's Fulham with Clint Dempsey, Paul Konchesky, Bobby Zamora, Zoltan Guerra, Danny Murphy and the ever-present Mark Schwarzer in goal went down in league history. Incidentally, Russian players also appeared at Fulham. Alexei Smertin ended his career here and Pavel Pogrebnyak flourished. Al-Fayed became a true legend at Craven Cottage. Even a small scandal in the early 2000s turned to his advantage. After a rapid rise to the Premier League, the club faced a problem: standing terraces, which were banned in the English Premier League. Al-Fayed announced that for the 2001-2002 season, the team would spend a couple of years at Loftus Road with Queen's Park Rangers, while he would bring the stadium up to standard. But soon the media reported on a cunning plan. Al-Fayed would not return the team to Craven Cottage because he would sell the arena for development. And a new stadium would be built somewhere else in at least 5 years. Fans did not have time to protest before Al-Fayed reassured them. He admitted that there were plans, but they were abandoned due to the fans' reaction. Moreover, he promised to convert the loans he gave to Fulham into equity. That is, effectively write off the club's debts. Over his 16-year tenure, Al-Fayed invested £187 million in Fulham. In 2013, he sold the club to American businessman of Pakistani origin Shahid Khan for £200 million. At that time, Al-Fayed was 84 years old. It has been a great pleasure and a huge privilege to be chairman of Fulham Football Club for 16 memorable years, Al-Fayed said, bidding farewell to Craven Cottage. I'm sad now, but I am proud of our achievements. I'm very grateful to the Fulham fans, the most incredible fans in the world. I have handed the club over to a talented, honest and very capable person who respects Fulham and its traditions. Al-Fayed's material legacy at Craven Cottage was supposed to be a statue of Michael Jackson. The Egyptian, with a fondness for all things royal, naturally befriended the King of Pop. In 1999, he brought Jackson to a Fulham game in the Championship against Wigan. In honor of this visit, a statue was erected at the stadium in 2011, and not all fans liked it. Many wondered what it had to do with football and Fulham, but Al-Fayed claimed that Michael Jackson brought good luck. The new owners removed the statue 2 years after its installation, and the team was immediately relegated from the Premier League. It's not hard to guess what Al-Fayed linked this failure to. Al-Fayed, of course, did not make Fulham a leader in English football, only a solid mid-table team in the Premier League, but he showed the way to other investors and made it clear to successors, from Russian oligarchs to Saudi sheikhs, that football in England can offset any reputational damage. By buying Fulham, he shed the shadow of past scandals and was perceived solely as the owner of a Premier League club, not the fake pharaoh who once did business with the voodoo president Duvalier.